What's up, everyone? Welcome to House of Enneagram. I'm Josh, and I'm joined by Kristen. We are a new podcast that talks about the Enneagram, explores different kind of nooks and crannies of the Enneagram, as well as applies insights of the Enneagram to things like TV and art and pop culture and other things that are going on in the world. And it's also kind of like a collective podcast with a rotating cast of kind of radio hosts, you could say. All of us have our different superpowers and areas of interest and deep dive into the Enneagram. I do individual interviews, and I have the Enneagram School where I am interested in inner work and creating kind of curriculums for people to on-ramp into the Enneagram. Kristen, you have a podcast called Insomnia. Do you want to talk about that?
Insomnia, where you can listen to three nines talk about dreams and what our dreams mean, having a relationship with them, but all in the context of personality, Enneagram, and so that kind of that type of relationship. What's the personality doing versus what is our unconscious material saying, and the symbols that appear and how that can influence and fuel our relationship to life and ourselves.
Yes. And so we have also Enneagrammer, the typing team, the official kind of best in the world typing team that makes very precise, sharp, real-time observations about video submissions. And also they have a members area where you can watch them type celebrities in real time from YouTube videos and also get typed by them. And we have retired our Big Hormone Enneagram podcast, which was been going on for a while after 200 episodes. That was kind of like a creative melting pot where a lot of distinctions got discovered around like hexad versus attachment, object relations, things like that. And so we're bringing all of our collective superpowers under one roof in the House of Enneagram. And so this is kind of like Enneagram variety show.
Nice. Yeah.
And today we're talking about a TV show called Severance, which
Yay!
which we love. So
yes.
So we're talking about Severance today.
Severance in the context of Enneagram / personality / how type kind of influences art and culture as well.
Sweet. Okay. So where should we start?
Would you say that the show kind of overall is a very 963 triple attachment in whatever order?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a Bermuda triple attachment, and I mean, I get the sense that it is telling the like self-preservation social story, but it feels like it's being seen through a social self-preservation lens. You know?
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's start here. I mean, I think maybe first, Severance, if you haven't seen it, you should immediately watch it because season one of Severance is one of honestly the greatest seasons of television that I've ever seen. It's like truly in a top 5. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. I just loved everything about it. Like this, it's a very social self-pres aesthetic. It's like mystery suspense. But it's also what it really does so well, it really captures the utter banality of work and it turns it into a suspense thriller. And it's just so like chef's kiss, like so good at that. And yeah, so all right, like okay, so like what you just said, I love what you just said. It's like telling the self-pres social story, but through a social self-pres lens. Or kind of like way of storytelling, you could say, or aesthetic. So like just starting there, like I think pretty much every single character is a self-pres social character.
Yeah, for sure.
But the aesthetic of the show, and actually let me say like every character is sort of just concerned with self-pres social needs. Like how am I, like even just the idea of being severed, it's like, I don't want to experience in my body the pain that I am experiencing. And so I would like to not. And so I sever myself, which by the way, there's a lot of stuff in Bermuda space, and especially 9 space around that, which we can get into. But the whole overall aesthetic of the show is this social self-pres, presentation. And like, if you look at social self-pres collages, a lot of times what you see is iconic social images in high contrast. For example, like, well, not talking about collages, but like in the show, like there's a shot of the team is the microdata refinement team, right? And they have their office that is located on a green carpet with these like stupid cubicle walls, right? And it's just a single, right in the center of the room, 4-person cubicle. It's just like the quintessential cubicle, right? It's like that right there is a social self-pres image, like the sort of icon of what office work is, you know?
Right.
Like, so this framing of it in a social self-pres way. And there's so many other moments like that through the show where there's this, just this like an elevator, boom, like just this, or a what a hallway is, or a security card, or just, or like the stupid little trinkets that people have on their desk that remind them of their family or whatever, like those things, you know, not those are stupid,
little
like
objects of personhood.
Yes. All these like little signifiers, they're really calling to mind like a social self-pres aesthetic. And I think it's probably why I was so drawn to it. It was like, this feels yummy to me just watching it, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think too, because for as like boring as like office kind of TV shows or whatever can be, like just typical office work, or like, you know, the self-pres social linear timeline of I wake up, I go to work, I come home, and that's when I'm like relaxing and doing the things I want to do or whatever.
There you go. Yeah.
For a premise that is like primarily focused on that, there's way too much like social symbolism, like just like leaking into every part of it, that like even why they're there and how they're there, like being severed, which, you know, like they don't, a completely other person shows up to work because a part of their brain that has a chip in it is basically like, you know, shutting down the memories, their long-term memories of being outside of work. And it's like even that is just like a super huge social commentary on like society and why, like how people are about in their day-to-day lives and stuff. So like there's so much of that just in everything and in each character. And like you were saying at the very beginning before we even started recording, like the mythology of the workplace and the like the founder worship that's happening there. Like it feels, if it's not like social self-pres, because I actually like, I don't know much about the writer, I didn't look up anything at this, but if it's not that, it's like very, very 6 as well, like type 6, just having that kind of like already just type 6 in general has a very strange and obscure relationship to authority, so I could see that as well if it isn't social self-pres. But that's just like,
would you say it feels like as an aesthetic 6-wing 5 over 6-wing 7 the whole show, in the sense that it's kind of let's see how to put that, like it's calling out the horror of a corporate behemoth that is concealing things. It's like lack of corporate transparency, taking advantage of people, a general sense of like dark and obscured corruption, and it's letting you sit in that. It's not fizzy and fun and jokey and comedy. It's, you know what I mean? It's like it's more horror in a certain way.
Well,
you know?
And so 2 things about that. One, I mean, I feel like 6-wing 5 because everyone is just like a Scrooge outside of work. They're all super grumpy, depressed.
That's true. Yeah.
You know, like they're just like nothing positive going on.
Yeah.
And then as I think what really like, I mean, just a fantastic metaphor for the head center, the mental center. But I think, with 6-wing 5, you know, in the show, they're on their computers and their work is to look for the scary numbers or like the
I know, it's
numbers
so it's
that
so good. Yeah.
the numbers that make you like feel disturbed or like paranoid, or you know, like there's so many different feelings, I guess, that they later go on in this second season. But just then when I first watched that, I'm like, what, this is genius. Like it's
Yes.
just, and then you watch them, like you watch on the screen what happens when then like, because I forget who it was. It was Miss Cole, what was her name?
Cobel.
Cobel.
Yeah.
Cobel. That she's
Stephen
like,
Colbert.
you know, Stephen Colbert.
He's on the show. That's right.
Yeah. That like that she's like training him or whatever, and is saying like you'll know when you see the number, like you'll know what I mean by looking for like the scary numbers. And when you as the viewer are watching it, it's like, oh, there it is. Like it's just such a weird, abstract, obscure like shaking or something of the number, and like, and it's pushing the other numbers around it, and like that just, you know, the fear of the head center, and like the type of obscure like neurotic paranoia that I think Six Wing 5 especially does internally, but like shown in an actual plot, it was just fabulous. And then you don't even know why it is for like until the end of season 2.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's a brilliant point. It's like this it's like it's the 6 Wing 5 thing of something is scaring me and I don't even know what it is. You know, it's this it's like this thing that's scary, but it's also shrouded in mystery and it's unfamiliar. But yeah, the dramatization of that was amazing. And I just have to say, okay, like let me just lay out a couple of other like ideas about the show. Like okay, first of all, maybe we should have said this at the beginning. Spoiler alert, you know, we're going to talk about like everything in the show. What it means to be severed. Like the premise of the show is that there's this huge corporation called Lumen that has developed a new technology that allows you to, if you want, get like this chip implanted in your skull that separates your memories from your home life from your work life. And so literally just visually the way they represent this is that if you're a severed employee, if you've had the severance procedure done to you, then your memories are physically distinguished so that when you enter the building and you climb and you go to the elevator, the ride up the elevator, you sort of become your work person, and then the ride down the elevator, you become your home person. And your memories are separated. So if you're at home, you don't remember anything that happened at work, and if you're at work, you don't remember anything that happened at home. And so effectively what that means is there's two literally separate people occupying one body. And there's so much to say about just that premise, just right there, as even just that actually as just as an idea. I was going to say a social suppress idea, but it's like this mythology that we've had at work in America, that we check our emotions at the door and we like put a mask on when we come to work. And it's almost like taking a fantasy to an extreme. Like I wish I could just go to work and clock in and just like forget myself and then clock out and then remember myself, so I don't have to deal with having to be at work, you know?
Right.
And I just love how the show takes that to an extreme through like a sci-fi idea. And also it makes sense to me that like the main character here is a 9, right? Who has this terrible pain that he has suffered with basically his wife died. Or so he thinks. But yeah, so his wife died and he's suffering it unimaginably from the pain of this loss. And he just wants to escape out of that pain. And so what better way to do that than to just cut out half of your lived hours, you know?
Can I also really quick jump in there too?
Yeah.
It also, it feels, other than it being a very kind of like head center thing, it also feels like very heart last, like in the culture.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Because, and that might even explain why it works so well with their whole founder worship and their mythology and their like workplace as church, as you kind of said it, because like the heart is where you really like believe in things. There's not like logic, and there doesn't need to be reason in the heart. So it's like where like the image that you are living by, both personally and collectively. And if that image isn't really filled in by you, or isn't believed in by you, it can be filled in by anything, which is why the workplace can do that so easily, if that makes sense.
It's totally heart last. Yeah, I think this is a great point.
Totally
it's like, okay, right. So it's heart last because
mm-hmm.
The heart center is all about knowing and expressing my identity, who I am. And the idea of I can split my identity in two and just not know half of who I am.
Yes.
It's such an anti-heart center sensibility. It's like, it's like, I don't even know what to say after beyond that. It just feels so heart dead. And then actually, here's the other thing about that is that, okay, we talk about workplace as church, which I think that this show draws on this larger social self-pres theme. And I don't know if they're doing this intentionally. Actually, it does feel like they're definitely doing this intentionally now that I'm sitting here thinking about it. because of all the biblical language about Kira and all the Kira worship and stuff like that.
Oh my God, yeah,
like
of course.
The employee manuals are written in this literally biblical tongue and stuff. It's, and they're quoting chapters and verses to each other. Anyway, the whole thing. But what I think they're referencing is a widespread cultural phenomenon. Putting on my social self-pres hat, not that I could ever take it off, but it's like this sensibility that, like, we used to gather at church in our culture, right? Church used to be a place where we would come together as a community and derive meaning with each other, and we would read the same book. And especially like let's just talk about like Christian churches. It doesn't matter what you do for work. You show up on a Sunday, and then you're listening to the same sermon, and you're drawing meaning, and you're orienting your values to God and Christianity and all that kind of stuff. And that's part of just how you know who you are, right, in relation to this, the mythology provided by your religion. And as modernity has expanded, and atheism has grown, and the church has sort of shrunk in its psychological power and hold on at least widespread portions of the population, especially kind of like rationalism, modernity, postmodernity, etc. Obviously, there are lots of pockets of traditionalism, and church culture is still alive in a lot of pockets of America. But more broadly speaking, scientific rationalism and stuff like that has dissolved the hold that church has had on the American and widespread cultural psyche. And where do we...
And
yeah, go ahead.
People also, too, that... people rebel against dogmas because everyone's like soul deep down knows that a dogma is not true to them. It's someone else's truth. It's not necessarily mine. So I think that's where church is also
that's a good point, actually. Yeah, that's a good point. There's even some heart stuff in what you're saying. Like a discovering who I am in contrast or opposition to, or independently from the dogma that I've ingested. Becoming kind of growing out of the conventional stages of my youth and becoming more post-conventional, you could say.
And like as our society is expanding and growing and discovering new things about itself and how we live and how we communicate, a dogma doesn't expand with it, so that can also is
Good
why
point.
People will a very nuanced topic, but I wanted to throw that in there.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So back to this, like the church's grip on American psyche has somewhat loosened, and, or I guess even you could say, well, actually there's a whole thing to say about this, because there's maybe a backlash of that happening now, literally right now in 2025. But my point is that, well, let me get there. My point is that what has replaced or what has attempted to replace church in terms of an institution where we derive meaning is the workplace.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we have, especially like our three fixed culture derives a sense of self-actualization and a sense of value and a sense of, values, like what we believe in, what we care about, actuated through the workplace. And so we enter into we sometimes choose a place that we want to work because of its mission. We believe in the product it's selling, or we believe in, I don't know, but like every workplace,
Sometimes it's just because that's what we need to do. Even a three fixed culture being, three still being last a lot in people. A lot of the time it is just like, well, it's betraying your own heart because you're still doing the assertive actualizing thing. Like, I just have to do something. Like, I need to pay the bills. It's that self-preservation, like, and what I do does not matter. It doesn't define who I am and stuff like that. Even though it absolutely has an impact on your sense of identity because it's what you're showing up to 8 hours plus a day,
Yes. Yeah, actually, okay, there's a nuance to let me like split this hair here. So it's kind of like in the absence of an institution like church to provide meaning, we are bereft of meaning, and one of the places we look consciously or unconsciously is our workplace. And whether or not we choose our workplace because we believe in it or not, some people choose their work because they want to believe in what they're doing. Some people just need a paycheck. But the point is that we're living in relation to, whether consciously or unconsciously, we're living in relation to the meaning that our workplace does or doesn't provide for us. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah. And so there's almost like this unconscious expectation that work can or should be something that is meaningful, and there's a disappointment if it's not,
Yes.
And there's almost like a mythology that we organize our collective psyche around, which is that, well, it can be meaningful, or this is maybe like a kind of a three fantasy, a three type fantasy where it's like,
oh, that's fascinating.
I want what I do to be meaningful and to reflect on who I am as a person. And to be a manifestation or a place where I put my values in action, and it's very painful if you are in a workplace that you feel incongruent with from a values point of view to literally spend 8 hours of your day or more doing something with your body and even your mind that is not in alignment with your heart. And so, anyway, so here we are back to Severance, where it's like what the severed employees get kind of born into. Literally, they start with no memories, and they are born into this world that is saturated with a church-like meaning, where the founder Keir is this godlike character that has produced employee manuals that have a biblical resonance, and literally all the artwork is like, you would see it almost like in like, it's like Renaissance churches, like these just these impressionistic brushstrokes and huge waves, and Keir standing on a cliff, looking out, surveying his territory. And I don't know, it's just there's just this religious iconography that and messaging that infuses the workplace that that people then live in some kind of relation to. Mark at the beginning is sort of a little like non-dissociate. He's becoming head of his severed floor, but he's not really that invested. But Irving is like totally drunk the Kool-Aid. He's like, he like wants to take, like when Helly comes and she into their world and she's causing all this ruckus and she's rebelling. Irving's solution is, we need to take her to the perpetuity wing. Where literally it's just this fucking, stupid place where there are these statues of Keir, and you can go and like read his words and have animatronic figures of him tell you that you're doing a good job or whatever. And there's this weird, messaging of faith that the work that we're doing is important in this vague way, but we're knights, carrying out the errands of some great entity that really matters. And it just so perfectly captures like the messaging that most workplaces would like to infuse their workers with, and the varying degrees of buy-in that those workers like have to those values.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and especially like what's fascinating about it is that because they are severed and like they are, downloaded, they're a tabula rasa, in this place, that like this is all they know. Like that there is some level of like, oh, what is this? And is this me? Is this, am I devoted? Am I not? Like but it's all that they know. So it's all that they can kind of,
right.
Be a part of. Well, and also, I don't know if this would go too off topic unless you wanted to keep going in describing things.
I have one other point on this thing, but
okay, yeah, do that before I go off on something.
I just wanted to say, like, as a person that coaches founders and executives and has been somewhat involved in corporate America, it's just hilarious how, like, I remember when I worked at my last company. Everyone's going to relate to this who's ever worked at like an office job. In the employee kitchen area, on the the walls were painted in the purple color of our companies when it was just like a really ugly purple. And on that wall were written in huge stenciled letters the 3 values of our workplace. And they were something like excellence, quality, and I don't know, another thing that actually I remember didn't make any sense, but it was like make the decision right or something like that. It was just some really, really bad hodgepodge of like mediocre or average values. Like someone asked ChatGPT to come up with like the worst normal values that people have at an organization, and it was like that's what showed up on the wall. And then organizations will go through these, like they'll take their executives to a retreat, and they'll say we need to redefine our values and who we are as a company, and then they'll exit that retreat having come up with 5 or 6 values that they then disseminate to the organization. This is who we are, and this is what we believe in. And there are, better and worse ways to do that, and ways to involve everyone. I don't know. There's like a huge body of thought that is devoted to how to get people to generate collectively and then buy into a workplace that actually has shared meaning. And then there's also, a lot of workplaces that don't even, care about that or don't do it very well. And they just plaster on their website a mission statement and a list of 6 values that don't ever get explained to these workers who are actually carrying out this mission, this grand mission. And the 9 core principles of Kira, I wrote them down because I just thought they were so funny. I just have to read them. So Kira's 9 core principles are this is so great: vision, verve, wit, cheer, humility, benevolence, nimbleness, probity, and wiles. This is so good.
This is so good.
This is so good. It's just, it just tickles me fucking pink because it's just such a funny, like expose of the sort of thoughtlessness that goes into so many corporations' definitions of their values, and this weird faith that if I just say them out loud and define them and then give them to you in a framed portrait, or if I plaster them on the website or put them up in the employee kitchen, that everyone's just going to show up and be like, wow.
They're inspired.
I feel so inspired. Yeah, and just buy in. And it's almost, the other thing too about this is that there's this is almost like this fantasy that a workplace has, like when you hire a person, that they are tabula rasa and they are willing to be infused with these values, that they don't, they won't bring all of their baggage and life experience and psychological complexity to a workplace, that they literally can check that out the door and just be like bird fed these values and then become the workers that, the person wants them to be.
Right.
And so anyway, just all of that, I thought that the show is just so absolutely picture perfect, brilliant at depicting that like farce, you know.
Yes. Oh yeah, huge. And that's the thing, the whole, I mean, like, I think why everyone finds it so entertaining, because the whole, like, when you put it that way, and the way, like, even those 9 values, that it's just like it shows how ridiculous
Yeah.
it's like extreme irony of of what's happening when like people do that. But that's what like pretty much everybody experiences everywhere. Like every corporation has something like that happening inside of it. But
Yeah.
I like how you said with the about like expecting people to be the tabula rasa and show up without all their baggage and stuff like that, because it is like what I found interesting too, especially you see it a lot come out a lot more in the second season, which is why I'd be interested in what your season 1 versus season 2 discrepancy is. But
Yeah.
what I really loved as well, like if you what the kind of what the show is also showing is that like that doesn't work still. Like even if some of the characters first start out like in the innies, as they say, I don't think we've clarified that they'll call
Oh yeah, yeah.
the version of them on the severed version innies. The ones outside living miserable lives but like not at work, outies. Whatever.
Just how perfect. It's just so good. Yeah.
So like the ones that are on the inside, the innies, the whole plot of the show, they start to question and they start to not really understand what's happening inside. They start to rebel. They start to have their own desires. And that's what I find fascinating about it, because I just want to talk a little bit on season 2. There is a scene where Innie Mark is communicating with Outie Mark, and
Yeah.
this is the
Yeah.
main character.
Right.
And they have to go in and out. They're recording, themselves on, well, one is recording himself on a camera, and then he walks out, and it is like flushed into Innie Mark, and Innie Mark watches the camera recording and has to record it again. And so it's the same person, it's the same actor, but there's such subtle differences. Like you can tell that their personhood is really differentiated,
He does
even
such
though
a good
it's
job
so
with that.
subtle.
Yeah. It's as
Such
an
a good
actor.
job.
Yeah,
It
really
was
good.
fantastic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole season you start to like understand, and it's so interesting how they do it, is that the ones on the inside going to work develop different desires altogether from their outside counterparts. So like your outside self is like, yeah, fuck it, I'll get severed, and I'll just like, the other me is just going to go to work and deal with it, and then I'm going to come home and it's going to be like my life,
Mm-hmm,
so
mm-hmm.
there's an emphasis on like me, it's my choice, blah blah blah. But the line becomes a little blurred when like the innies, all of the workers who are severed, really start to have their own life and think and start to realize, like, why am I not the one that gets to make the choices?
Mm-hmm.
And so in this kind of sense, it's like, even with the severing of the heart and identity and whatever, to me, I'm heart last. My 3 fix is my last fix. So I don't have I can have a more objective view on it. And I don't have as much of an attachment, although it absolutely impacts me in many different nuanced ways. But I feel like that even shows like how complex identity is, that even when it does split, like the part that is experiencing something completely different, like has like the shadow counterpart,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
like has its own complete autonomy and sense of self.
Mm-hmm.
And like what that happens um in the psyche, like in an individual's choice in general, like
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
that whole topic is like really cracked open in the second season, I think. So I appreciated it for that, but I wanted to know what your notice was on the 2 seasons differences.
Well, let me comment on what you just said first. Like
Okay.
Like I thought there's something cool about yeah. So first of all, yes, what you're saying, like you're not actually tabula rasa, even if you wake up and you're kind of a brand new person, at least as depicted in the show. You still arrive a priori with a personality, and the way that your availability to ingest the corporate mythology is due to your temperament, you could say. And like Irving, we didn't see Irving wake up, but like he apparently was so available that he was, as an Innie, just absolutely saturated, like loved everything about Kier and is totally bought in. But there's, Helly wakes up and she immediately throws a speaker at Mark's face and is like, where the hell am I? I don't want to, and she tries to kill herself. And she wants out. And so there's something, I just think that's kind of cool. Cause like there's something about, something true about that, in the sense that we don't arrive into the world blank slate ever. There's never such a thing as tabula rasa with a person. We're always arriving already with a lens or a way of reacting or something like that. And the other thing too is about what I loved about this show, other than like a million things, is it's like all these outies to arrive at the decision to sever, with the exception of Helly, but all these outies had some reason that they wanted to cut themselves off from themselves, like a tragedy they're experiencing, or we learn that Dylan is sort of like, he's had a hard time holding down a job and he's kind of a fuck up, and he decides to sever because this is a job that he can actually hold down, these kinds of things. And then the Innies, they start in this kind of like naive, willing to ingest this weird corporate mythology place, but then as they grow, especially with Helly's kind of inspiring rebellious presence, they awaken these virtues that are kind of the virtues that their outies like dimmed, in the first place, like Mark awakens his courage, and Dylan, his valiance and his capacity, and Irving, his heart opens, and his, I don't know, there's so many things about that. And I think Helly's slightly of a different story. I think I don't know what you think about this, but it strikes me that she's the only person who has a different literal Enneagram type, like Innie and Outie.
See, okay, my mind with her character has gone like all over the place. So I don't know if I've fully formed yet exactly what I pinpoint, but she really does, just even as like one of the main female characters, like and like consistently throughout season 1 and season 2 been like, we've seen the Innie and Outie version a couple of times. Like I'm not quite sure where I'm landed on with her, but it is interesting how dualistic, like, she's very split. And I think it's like an entirely different character arc for her that seems to be still operating in that. So like there are qualities that her Innie is attaining that her Outie is like completely cut off from, like even just love and empathy, and like actual kind of like rebellion, because it seems like her Outie is more of like a I don't want to say like a slave to the whole Kier thing, but kind of, like she's just as dogmatic on the outside, I think, that I feel like the inside she's really showing her own individuality and connecting more with like her soul and stuff. And so I feel like that's maybe why it's a bit more extreme. I maybe wouldn't go as far as to say she's two totally different types.
Okay.
I think her situation is a bit more nuanced. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I guess my impressions were like, she's definitely a 6 as an Innie. But as an Outie, she seems like her comportment is so like, I don't know. She comports herself. I was getting 3 vibes, 3 wing 4, maybe 3 1 6 or something like that. But anyway, I don't have a super strong opinion, but my
Well, I could see, and that's the thing what I find is interesting about type and the nuance of it. Like I could see 6 who is cut off from their
mm-hmm.
feelings, and like, you know, how many people you see being or 6s like really being loyal, you know, like
Sure,
the
yeah.
loyalist is like going back to the basics is the
Mm-hmm.
6th name, and like what dies inside of anybody, but I mean especially a 6 who's loyal to something that doesn't actually like feed them, you know.
Sure,
So
yeah.
I could see it as just plain, not plain, but like as quite a depressing response to what her life is outside as a
What do you
6th.
make of, like, okay, one thing that I loved about season there, I have a lot of critiques about season 2, but one thing I loved about season 2 was, again, spoiler alert, that Helena, her Outie, was undercover as sort of an imposter as her Innie. I
Yes.
loved that. And the choice to have her and Mark like fuck, you know, that was like
Yeah.
so
As
good. Like that was so crazy. That was like that is such a good moment of writing to me. Is
mhm.
that moment that she chooses to do that as her Outie. Um,
Mhm.
and it's motivated by, you know, the kind of the previous season, her jealousy at her Innie for having like falling in love and being loved back,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know, and this
That's why,
dry,
yeah.
emotionally like desert like Outie, you know, has this like oh my god kind of moment. At least that's what I'm interpreting from
Oh
it.
yeah, no, and that's why I find it as like a completely fascinating. Her character has a totally different thing going on than all of the other ones
Yeah,
because of the personal connection to the family, the Lumen family,
right,
um
right,
and like I feel as if, you know, what I found interesting in the second season, that basically all of the male characters at some point made some kind of written or vocal connection to their Outie. So they're
uh-huh,
talking to them, right?
yeah,
And she does not, because she knows that it's not going to work. You know, like there's an
mm-hmm,
inherent knowing that the two of them are too separate. Like they're two totally different people.
right, right,
And I even think that could be like a great I don't know, like archetypal image of the 6, you know, because you even think like,
the split,
I would even, yeah, like that
yeah,
split, that total split. Um, and also as well that like her Outie is very, I would almost say like a little one-ish, like
uh-huh,
very
uh-huh,
critical, you know, but it's also like the inner critic of a 6 and how dogmatic it is.
mm-hmm,
Um, that like the nature of 6 is kind of just always sort of feeling this like eye on it,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know, and
yeah,
like reacting to it or responding to it. It's the superego, right? Like
yeah,
that
yeah,
is
right,
the
right.
nature of the superego. There's some other authority that a moral judge that you are constantly under and responding to or reacting to or something like that. um
Yeah. You know, regardless of the of her Audie's type, it does feel like, I mean, her Audie has this formidable severity, and like I agree, like she's got some one in her, right? Like this
mhm.
that is like deeply contrasted with her Innie's like ferocious animal like willingness to just like fuck you, like nail biting, scratching kind of like thing, you know?
Yeah.
Um and yeah, I mean, in a way, she's actually like one of the most. She's like such an interesting character. She's such an interesting
I
character.
know. Well, and that's, I was thinking like, you know, why hers is the hardest, and just kind of like showing the complexity of the personality and stuff like that, that, you know, kind of as a basis when we get through the second season, it is like you're saying like what qualities are the parts that we've cut off, like what kind of, like how do you integrate those qualities as a whole, so you're not separate, right? And so you're kind of
Oh
starting
yeah,
to
yeah.
see the dialogue of that happening is like they start to, especially with Mark, the main character, when he's actually talking, the Innie and Outie Mark are talking. They're having that conversation of like, we could be whole if we made this choice to, what is it that they call it?
Reintegrate.
Reintegrate. Yeah. Like if we made the choice to reintegrate, which is basically like this kind of shifty technology to remove or to like black out or whatever the chip in the brain, that we could reintegrate and therefore live our life together, which is like, integrating the shadow and those qualities that you've disowned and stuff, and having the memory of both as a whole person, right? That with Helly's and Helena's characters, like, could you imagine what that would mean for her? That would be the ultimate like breaking down of dogma, because she is loyal to the dogma of Lumen itself on the outside, but is rebellious because she's responding more from love and her soul on the inside. That like, no wonder they're not talking to each other, because they know that split is so severe, and the reintegration of that would mean to like completely abolish dogma altogether, which I mean essentially would be the point of the show, right?
Yeah, the show's really posing this like very interesting sci-fi question of like, I don't know, it's sort of like how far do you want to go into this inquiry, but it's like, if you could actually separate yourself, and then you have two different literally people occupying the same body but living separate lives, and then they reintegrate and they have different love stories, different like how do you actually bring the parts of yourself together? And I guess if you want to like elevate out of the details of that just for a second and just talk about abstractly like what it's sort of what it means to do inner work, right? To like integrate all the parts of you, right? It's but it's like a very literal dramatization of, I don't know, how actually complicated and contradictory that is.
Yeah. Well, and that's, it is, if you listen to my podcast Insomnia, we talk about a lot about Jungian theory, and when you actually read Jung's writing, like he describes exactly this, that he does believe your shadow, a lot of your shadows and a lot of the things cut off from the personality are separate entities and do have completely separate desires. And you think of our instincts in personality, that, we're constantly, running on one dominant instinct, and then we find out that we have two other instincts that have two totally different motivations than our dominant one. Like I even see when you brought up the scene with Helena pretending to be Helly, and kind of like live this love relationship with Mark very briefly. Like even that kind of jealousy and stuff like that could be her shadow sexual instinct coming out,
Oh, sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Like that the shadow of that instinct not being able to be expressed anywhere in her outer life,
right.
Like that, to see that like inner, her Innie is trying to kind of occupy that space a bit more, and actually like falling into love and stuff like that. Like it's very challenging to her and her character and stuff like that I find that fascinating. But yeah, like that it is like a literal and strange, obscure representation of what is happening in inner work.
Right. But the finale was fucking great.
Yeah,
season 2 finale was really good. It was good.
Yeah.
We got an answer about the goats, which was, or at least a partial answer to the goats.
It was partially answered.
Yeah, actually, I take it back. It wasn't really answered, but it was sort of that was okay. That was another aspect of season 1 that was just so like crazy and good. It was just like they had the audacity to have the goat room, like Helly, and, like just
weird.
Like, yeah, and it's, I don't know, just living in this weird farcical reality, and where every moment of that farcical reality is genuinely earned
Yeah.
and it creates this emotional landscape of where you're actually believing that this farce is real, and they're experiencing it as real. Like, for example, like going to the wellness room and having this woman say, in a meditative voice, your Outie loves jazz music. Your Outie is kind. Like that kind of stuff. It's just, and then the character just being so soothed by that. Just that whole thing, it just feels like, okay, this is real for these people, because of the premise. And yeah, anyway, I've made this point a million times, but yeah, so it shows like it's like slightly got off its wheels a little bit, but the season 2 finale was absolutely epic. Just like the moment of just the switching off between Innie Mark and Outie Mark, and going in the elevator, and then the gun going off, and then just I don't know, each of them having to sort of immediately adjust to the consequences of what their counterpart has done, and the
insane.
Yeah, and then just this beautiful, like that was really good writing actually to me, was Mark rescuing what's her name? Gemma.
Yeah.
And there's like 4 different interactions, right? There's like Outie Mark with Innie, Gemma, and then anyway, all the permutations of that. There was a moment, it was just really like beautiful. Yeah.
And then how like I went back and forth between like feeling disappointed and excited and like confused at the very end when Innie Mark chooses to stay with Helly.
Yes.
That it's just like at my initial, obviously, like heartbreak, disappointed, like, are you serious? Like, that's how you're gonna end it? Like, you can't give me some kind of satisfaction here. But then spending time with it, it's like, oh my God, like the implications of this going forward, like what would the next season be? Like that what felt so satisfying for them to have that be the choice, because it's so like disturbing and disappointing. And yeah, like just the autonomy of that Innie like character choosing something so like vitally important,
and also like his other alternative is he thinks he's going to kill himself by walking out that door. He thinks he's never coming back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why like it's so like when you're talking just a little bit ago about like this is real to them.
Yeah.
Like the whole show just I feel like really hits on, I mean, we've been talking a lot about personality, but like the head, the body, and the heart centers, like just because I even think of like when someone's sitting there soothing with that kind of voice, like a lot of the themes are very like is this brainwashing, like like the Bermuda thing of like externalizing your centers, like you're externalizing your environment and your sense of autonomy. You're externalizing what you like I guess, what you believe in the head center way, like your authority, I would say. And then like you're externalizing your values and what you believe in a heart kind of centered way. But and your sense of self and stuff like that, that like all three just sort of like seeing the complete chaos of that happening in each individual character, in the system as a whole, in the culture as a whole, is just like amazing. Like how nuanced it is, but and how much that influences your sense of self and your sense of reality, like period. Just like, how do I experience reality? And your personality is set up to like experience or fully believe in certain narratives that it has created for itself, or that it has been put on, like it has internalized or whatever, and just how much that actually impacts your life choices, and who you are and your sense of self.
It makes sense that like all these characters are basically attachment types, just because it makes them available for that kind of outsourcing or being infused with, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything what have we not covered here?
Yeah, we've covered a lot.
We've heard a lot. Yeah.
I mean, the basis, at least, of all of it. I'm trying
We haven't
to think.
really talked about like Cobel or Milchick. That's a potential thing to just touch on.
I know Milchick, I think, definitely has a 2 fix.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah. Milchick is
like,
yeah.
That's what makes him so kind of uncomfortably sweet.
Yeah. And also his willingness as a character to just keep coming back to that, just to he keeps renewing his performative sweetness. He just he keeps doubling down on that.
Yeah.
And he keeps being so like I don't know, like privately miffed and resentful when his overtures of sweetness aren't received in the right way and stuff like there is that thing for sure with him, for sure.
Yeah, he completely like rejects what anyone thinks he is, because he has this total solid sense of self. And that's why, like, out of all of the characters pretty much having 3 fixes, like Milchick feels so different.
Yes.
Because it is that rejection quality that is just like, you can sense that it's not just about like what they do here at this job or whatever, like a 3 assertive kind of value would be. It's like there's some kind of extra layer of super ego going on in him, that this is more about like, what he has to offer and is imposing on his own character inside this facility.
Yeah, there's something too about like he's the person who organizes the melon party, the music dance experience. He's the purveyor of perks, and
purveyor of perks.
yeah, and he's also like the sort of disciplinarian, but he tries to be sweet about it, and then he sort of has to get himself to this point of harshness, and then his harshness comes out. But he always, it's almost like there's this in his character structure, there's this impenetrability of like, it's like he's not updating his view of these people. He's like, he keeps believing that if he just gives them another perk or whatever, that they will finally,
that's a good point.
Succumb to, they will finally be the people he sees them as. It's like,
yes.
And that's that too, like rejection of gaze thing. It's like, you are what I see of you,
right.
And there's not any other part of you. It's like, I've in a certain way severed off like the part of you that I believe is you. And if I just fix my gaze on that, then you will humbly and gratefully just like settle into that person that I am seeing you as, and get back in line.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about, oh my God, I'm not ever going to say her name. Stephen Colbert. What is her name? Why am I not getting her name right?
Cobel.
Cobel.
Yeah.
Cobel. Okay. Yeah. I don't, I actually was fascinated by that actress, because I want to,
she's amazing. Yeah. She's so
and
weird.
I tried looking her up, and I kind of got 9 Wing 8 from her.
Okay.
I think I was on 9 Wing 8 2, like a 2, like secondary 2.
Okay.
But maybe not in the show, but as like an actress,
as a person, say, like, that tracks for me actually. Yeah. I haven't looked very much, but just, I don't know, the way she holds herself, it feels, and her gaze is so intense.
Yeah, and I think she's head last, and I forget if I thought 5 or 7. Might have been 5. She felt a little bit more rejection-y than normal. But as a character, I think that's why her like sharpness, her kind of like imposing energy can come across so well.
Right.
But I'm not sure about like her type in the show.
It's got to be attachment core of some kind. I'd probably put it at still 9 wing 8 actually, but I don't.
You think so?
I guess I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I just
hard.
like the whole thing about her being like, you know, the Girl Scout of Kier, like this, like worshiping him from. She was born in that Kier village, right? And then just we learned in her backstory, literally offered all of her, like her life, her life force, all of her ideas into this overstructure that she believed in.
Yeah, I think also too, just to like, I think it's also very hard to type fictional characters, especially
sometimes they're not actually pure.
Yeah, because it's like the what I've always seen it as is like the character in written form was written by someone of a specific type, and they were writing someone of whatever hodgepodge of types, and then the actor is a specific type trying to portray a type that was written by someone of a different type. Yeah. It's like too many
it's good.
Typing influence, like that a fictional character can't really fully be like, you know, as clear of a personality type, I think, because of all of those
completely agree.
problems.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I could see 9. I could see 9 wing 8. I could see 6 wing 5. Like somewhere of that kind of thing going on.
Yeah. But I agree with you that there's like it makes a lot of sense to me that in her real life personhood that she has some rejection fix because, or you know, or wing or both or something, because she has that formidableness, that like that impenetrable solidity thing. But it's not core 8. I mean, it could be an 8 wing, right? But like it's got to be maybe what's, I don't know, 8 wing plus a 2 fix feels maybe right to me in some kind of energetic way.
Yeah, because I watched quite a lot of videos with her, and it does seem like that 2 secondary. There is a bit more of an imposing of image with her, and I think that's why it can, you know, she can embody quite a villainous sort of archetype in characters on screen. And when you see her in person, she's like totally lovely and funny and goofy. You know. Yeah.
Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention, I forgot about this. Miss Wang, the child manager character.
Yeah, what was that?
Yeah. Okay, I just, as again, social self-press commentary, it's just hilarious to invoke this idea of we are often, I don't know, just how like young people will sometimes get placed into manager roles where they're managing people that are much older than them, and to take that to a farcical extreme where it's like this one, she probably came up in a village like the one Cobel came up in, right? Like she's being indoctrinated into this lumen culture, and yeah, and then it's just hilarious, her presence there, and also her severity, and she's a great little actor, and the way that she like asserts her managerial presence right up front, where Mark is like, I made a new friend today, and she's like, that's very sweet, but I have to remind you, as your supervisor, I can't be your friend. You know, that thing, it's just so quintessentially captures this like corporate culture, stupid, like social boundaries thing, right? And it's so funny too, because it's, again, this perfectly framed, like there's only 4 people sitting at a table, and those are the only people they have in their whole worlds, you know, but to still maintain this social distance manager employer hierarchy in that state, plus she's a 14-year-old girl or something, it's just like, you know, so funny.
Like it's when Milchick made her destroy her own toy, and of course it's like the dumbest toy ever, like the one where the little rings go around the guy's hand, the diver's hand or whatever.
I have to,
and you
like,
just like press the button, and
that was one of those
bubbles go up.
I agree that was, I don't know, there was something emotionally impactful about that moment, but at the same time, that was another one of those choices where I was just like, it feels like loyalty to an aesthetic over an actual meaningful thing or something like that. Like,
yeah, it didn't really have, I mean, Yeah, it didn't have much of a meaning, but it is that whole like out of how much drama, like, and quite serious drama is going on in the show. Like, you know, the dude's getting stabbed at one point, and like that people are dying and crying and blah blah blah. Like to have that I think like her innocence being like ruined in so many different kinds of ways, like that was just sort of like
Right.
another, like having her play that little game, like, you know, behind her desk was just
Yes.
like her only connection still to like childhood, to
Oh,
being a
that's
kid, to
that's
being her
good.
appropriate
That's really
age.
good.
Yeah.
That's really good. There you
And
go. And then she has to
right. And so
sacrifice. Yeah. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
and she sacrifices it, and it's just that moment of like, oh my god, like really, like
Right,
you're gonna take it. It's like it's not even a video game. It's not even like a Game Boy. It's
Yes,
like
it's
one of
yeah,
those
yeah.
stupid little things that like I wouldn't even find entertaining at that age, and yet this is like her only entertainment out of the entire thing. Yeah.
That actually does like redeem that writing choice for me. Although I wish that they had established more, I don't know, with a little bit more emotional punch, her attachment to the game. You know,
Yeah,
like I
yeah.
wish that there were like scenes of her like doing her managerial stuff and then like going behind the wall and just like really trying to get that, you know, win that game or something, just so we could see that she was really attached to it. You know.
I see, yeah, the
Yeah.
attachment. Well, and that's why it could too, like with Six Wing 5, it is just like no fun, you know? Like you don't have the seven wing of
Right.
finding things
Right.
entertainment. And when you do find something entertaining, it's like an obsession. It's not like the yippee attachment, you know?
Oh.
It's like I'm obsessed with this thing because it's regulating me in some way, right?
Oh.
So maybe that's why I got I responded to it a bit more, because and her complete lack of reaction, because you know inside of her something just died when she
Yeah.
did that,
Yeah.
but she doesn't show it at all, and it's just so upsetting. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
That's
that much more upsetting.
that's
Yeah,
a very good point about the 6.5 thing. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Well,
that's Severance.
that's
From
it. All right. It's
da, da,
done.
da, da. Yeah. Oh, actually, I will say one other thing.
Mhm.
Just again, this I don't know how to. It is interesting. I don't know where to put this, but it is interesting to me that all the characters are self-pres social in such a like clear way, but that the overall aesthetic of the show is social self-pres, and
Mhm.
like this moment of Milchick being promoted and then presented with repainted photos of Kier as a black man,
Oh, yes.
and just like
Right, that
bringing
was
race
crazy.
in to the
Mhm,
conversation or just into the show. I mean, first of all, it's just
mhm.
a social self-pres like idea, I guess 6 as well, but like the
Yeah, very
um
6, yeah.
and then his obvious discomfort with it, and then his trying to outreach to the other black woman on the show. I think her name is Natalie, like the PR
Mhm.
woman for Lumen, who
Yeah.
yeah, that I don't know, just the fact that they are playing up these racial undertones itself, it just made me think that, like, okay, yeah, the show is aware of and playing with social dynamics that are beyond just the workplace. Like there's a broader social self-pres sensibility here, and it's not like a huge
Mhm.
part of the show, but it is a huge part of Milchick's character journey, because his breakdown in terms of loyalty to the organization, that he's trying to hold on to, but he's like, then he tells that guy to eat shit. Just all that gets motivated by, in part, like his ambivalence towards them, which I don't know, that whole moment of that very strange nod, you know, to his, like, I don't know, it's like this weird, it's, I don't know, let me say it another way. It's like this way that a corporation that doesn't actually care about you tries to demonstrate that it cares about you and just totally misses in this weird,
Yes, it's
you know,
yeah,
it
it's
just,
completely shallow. It's
yes.
like
Yeah.
that's such a common thing too. Yeah, that they try to, and the whole melon party and blah 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 and all this stuff. It's like all these shallow ways to try and make you like feel as if you're important or whatever, but it's so obviously not. And it's that thing where like the heart really does know that it's fucking shallow.
There you go.
know,
Yeah,
like,
yeah. There you go.
So that you're not actually seeing me as a person. You're not actually seeing my values. You're like, and you watch how each character, and especially with Milchick, which is why I'm fascinated at how it's like, even at the end of season 2, he's almost there at rebellion and he still isn't there. Like, he's taking the longest, even though he's like has the most fuel and has the most used against his personhood and his heart and stuff like that. Like, it's just and it's taking so much that no matter how shallow they are, like, he still isn't quite yet cracking, but like every character is somehow feeling that, like, I am the gaze is being completely missed and I am being completely missed. Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, that's to your point about this show being heart last, right? It's like, it's this gradual awakening of a slumbering heart center that finally gets that it's not being seen. And that is what causes a lot of these characters, I don't know, to eventually, like, stand in their truth in a certain way. Yeah. Just the point. It's like all these characters that have abandoned themselves and forgotten who they are, and they get their values challenged in their face all the time by some, I don't know, sometimes disembodied authority, or just the authority that Lumen represents, the impersonal corporate thing that has a mission that they've tried to convince you that you're a part of, but actually they don't give a shit about you. And you are waking up to their lack of actual care about you as a person, and discovering in yourself how much loyalty to yourself you actually want to have, and what are your values, and so like that's sort of that awakening of the heart journey that each of the characters in their own way is doing.
And like, even too, just aesthetically, like finding the place just aesthetically unpleasing. They're starting to dream and imagine what it's like on the outside. Like, they have these little comments of like, what do you think clouds look like, or like, what do you think this, or, this place looks like, or something, like they're, it's rebelling too against the aesthetic qualities, because it is just like an ugly place, and they make it so like sterile, and like the human heart does not like sterility. Like, it doesn't like that. It needs, nature and stuff like that. And so they start to kind of dream of the outside aesthetics as well. And that's really interesting. Yeah.
So, Severance, ladies and gentlemen.
Severance, go watch it if you haven't, but if you listen to this and you're wondering what we're talking about, go watch it.
I really am so sorry if you listen to this and you haven't watched Severance yet.
I know, like, what?
Yeah,
what are
sort
you
of
doing?
ruined it for you, but also, what are you doing? And you need to immediately go watch it.
Yeah,
at least season 1 anyway.
Yeah, that was good. I mean, plenty of stuff. I think we're good.
Yeah. Oh, we should say. Please like and subscribe our channel. Thank you very much.
Oh, duh. Yes, please do that.
Yeah.